That's fine.
Okay, so it's here for another World Online podcast. It's Oliver Green here again, uh, founder and editor of World, where we cover the main three pillars of concerning world affairs, so politics, economics, and the historical uh, context and dynamics surrounding it. Here with me today is Professor Brian Birdnow. Um, Adjunct university professor, journalist, and author. And we're just going to have a discussion on, politics, both sides of the pond. He's based in Missouri, in the States, and I'm in southwest England. And so we're just going to have, just compare notes really and give our takes on what's going on at the moment. And so I think Brian's going to kick off on what it's like stateside. So go ahead.
Okay, well, this is the first, political campaign, presidential, I should say, campaign in
Mm.
America that has been troubled by two attempted presidential assassinations, and it's been kind of a commonplace over here to say that our politics are never been as polarized as they are now. And for a while, I think that was just kind of media hype. I didn't think that was really true. But
Mm.
when you consider that Trump was shot on the 13th of July, I guess it was, and then this thing a little over a week ago, with another assassin or attempted assassin getting within 400 yards of him, and obviously with a gun, he isn't doing that for the purposes of just kind of scaring him or whatever.
Mm.
I would say there is something to this. I mean, if there are that many people out there who would actually attempt to murder a candidate for the presidency of the United States, well, then this is, we have gotten past the point of just ordinary political back and forth where, each party hates the other party and wishes no good to come of them. You actually got people who are out there with the intent of mayhem.
Mm.
That's dangerous and a very kind of a disturbing thing. And again, it calls into question too the security for a presidential candidate should be absolutely impenetrable. But two times within 2 months,
Mm.
assassins have gotten within hailing distance of a former president of the United States leads me to question whether we what we're doing wrong, or whether we really do need to improve what we're doing to protect these people.
Yeah, I mean, as I understand it, the head of the CIA has already been made to resign over it. Uh, I mean, obviously, assassination attempts nothing new. Obviously, that wasn't the last one Ronald Reagan in 1980, was that? Or 81, sorry.
Yeah, that was the last. He was the last one who actually was shot. So that's
Hmm.
been 40 some odd years ago. But
Yeah.
then, of course, there were I don't remember when it was that somebody actually threw a shoe at George W. Bush when he was over there in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah, that was in Iraq. I remember
Yeah,
that. Yes, I
yeah,
saw that. Yes.
it's one of those things that people kind of tend to forget. Now that pales in comparison to actually being shot, but
Hmm.
then there have been, I don't know, I think, the nature of kind of like protective work and stuff is only going to be exposed when it fails. How
Hmm.
many, possible kind of bad guys were out there whose efforts or whose plans came to naught because they were found out, or they were, kind of, but you never hear about those things. You only
No.
do hear about them when something goes wrong, so I don't know that we should condemn the entire American kind of security apparatus here.
No, I tend to be of the incompetence train of thought rather than conspiratorial. I mean, obviously, there's always temptation by certain quarters of the public to drive up conspiracy theories for all sorts of things. But I think by and large, 90% of the time, it's just incompetence and
Yeah,
keep taking your eye off the ball. That's usually what causes these. I mean, I think I said to you, didn't I, a while back when we were messaging back and forth. It was looking to be a rerun of 2020 unless Biden dies or Trump is shot is assassinated. And I wasn't
Yeah.
I was quite remarkable how I wasn't that far off really in terms of Biden deteriorating and Trump, as you've said, being twice attempts on his life. So I just wonder why it's happening more at this election and not in 2016. I mean, I suppose there was a belief in 2016 he couldn't win. I suppose that perhaps that was what there wasn't so much charge over it.
Yeah, remember back to 2016, and I voted for Trump, but
Mm,
yeah, he was not my ideal candidate. I was Ted Cruz, the Texas senator, was the man I supported in that one. But
mm,
when Trump won the Republican nomination, I still don't think that he expected he was going to win the election, and
right.
I think he was looking at that as kind of like the capper on his career, and that that would be like the last chapter that he would write about the presidential campaign. And he did appear to be stunned really when he did win, because I
Mm.
remember he addressed the public, and they, of course, the media. So, well, what are your plans? And he didn't really have any plans. I don't think that he thought he was going to win. So
No.
it was kind of like, why go ahead and go to all the trouble of, putting together some of the agenda when we're not going to win anyway? And
Well,
so,
isn't it publicity, wasn't it, for him, marketing, PR?
and again, I don't, even his best friends would admit that the man is an egomaniac. There's no doubt about that. And
Mm,
he just loved the fact that, he could, command attention by simply saying good morning, in ways that being a television guy or being a real estate developer never offered him. But
mm,
I also, it's interesting too, because, he had been a friend of the Clintons way back, when they were in the White House and that, and
was
they
he a
were,
donor at the time?
yeah, a donor, and he
Mm,
and a good friend too. I think that they looked at it like, well, to have a billionaire, on our side, this will help us in a lot of things and so forth. And I don't know that he really personally liked them, but they were the president and first lady, and possibly the next president of the United States. So he figured, well, let's keep these people, on. Let's keep them on our team, as it were. But I think, I think that too kind of helped him in the election, because Hillary Clinton was a polarizing figure. I mean,
mm,
there were so many people who absolutely despised her,
yeah.
and that they were gonna vote for anybody who was not her. And then even the people who she had a core group of people who loved her, but that was outweighed by the number of people who really didn't like her. And quite a lot of people who shared, I think, their general worldview, but they really could not stand Hillary. So
Mm,
that was a good thing for him, in the sense that he's running against a very unpopular figure. And then in 2020, when the Democrats kind of, they kind of pushed Biden into the race then, because I remember sitting here and listening to a bunch of Democrats right in this area who were, they were saying there's no way that the American public is going to elect a vowed socialist like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. We
mm,
need to find somebody who, who appeals to the center and that kind of thing. And they came up with Biden, even though Joe Biden's record in the Senate and his voting record was pretty much identical to Teddy Kennedy. He was on the far left of the Democratic Party. But
right.
yeah, but they said that, well, Biden appears to be, he's got a kind of a likability sort of a factor that, Hillary Clinton doesn't have, and that Bernie Sanders doesn't have, and so forth. And of course, they use COVID to kind of keep Biden, off of the television programs and off of the interviews and stuff. They're saying, well, simply stay at home in your garage, issue, statements that are kind of unthreatening and so forth, and let
Mm,
us take care of the rest. And we will bait, Trump. We will, annoy him. We will get him to say things that we know he wants to say, but things that you shouldn't say.
Mm.
Let us go ahead and we will, we'll win this thing for you. And that's pretty much what did happen,
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the view really that before COVID hit, the Democrats were not expecting to win.
Yeah,
I don't think. I think it was a shoe-in for Trump. If COVID hadn't hit, the economy would have kept ticking along all right.
yeah.
Um, the fundamentals, the keys would have remained in place, and he would have got. I'm sure he would have got a second term. It was COVID that completely turned everything around. And obviously, I think it's best to bear in mind that I think Biden has deteriorated extremely, incredibly over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
You compare him now to what he was like in 2020. I think there's a incredible difference. It shows how differently people age. I think. I mean, let's say Trump's only what 2 years younger than Biden.
I think so,
Trump
yeah.
Trump could pass physically, could pass in his 60s, whereas Biden looks about 80 late 80s or 90 odd. Um,
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing, and it was the whole thing was interesting when Biden was making his kind of like his farewell address after he had agreed to step aside, and he said, incredible statement. He said, "Well, I said, and I have kept my promise. I would never lie to the American people." Well, they lied to the American people about his fiscal state all the way up until that point. They were saying that there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. He was perfectly, fit and hale and hearty.
hmm,
And but they admitted then when he said it's time to go ahead and turn this over to somebody who's younger and who's more, kind of with it. That was an admission that they'd been lying for 4 years about his physical,
yeah.
ability and his decline, which they said had never actually happened at all. So
Hmm. Now it's interesting you mentioning earlier about 2016 and the factors involved with that, which I agree with you what you've been saying. I think a lot of it though, I think there's often too much emphasis on personalities because I think so much of it is cyclical and dictated more by political cycles that I think a lot of the mainstream media don't understand. So I think in 2016, after 8 years of Obama,
mhm.
rightly or wrongly, however you judge the party, a lot of it is determined by the party in power and how they've governed the country. And then after 8 years, often people want to change. I think in 2016, any Republican would have won that election. I don't think it was anything to do with Trump per se. As you rightly pointed out, obviously having Hillary as the Democratic nominee obviously sealed it, I think. But I don't know if you've ever followed Professor Alan Littman and his 13 Keys to the White House.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
yeah, I mean, he's calling it for Harris this time. But I mean, he's pretty much been right every time except for 2000, where there was a bit of a where he predicted Al Gore, but there was involvement there with the Supreme Court and
Yeah.
in Florida, which interfere with it. As I understand it from the polling data, this is, I think, as you hinted at earlier, this is going to be a very tight election.
Hmm.
I think it's going to be much even closer than the last one and the one before that. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does appear to be that it's going to be kind of a late night thing that, it might not even be over with, until like into the morning. But,
Mm,
every one of the elections, in fact, I meant to have the newspaper here. I don't want to go ahead and go walk away and get it, but on the day after the election in 24, and I had the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which is it's a major metropolitan daily paper, and they are a very, very solidly left-wing paper. They all were all for Biden,
mm,
but on front page it said decision delayed, Biden Trump in dead heat and too close to call and all this stuff. This was on the morning of November I guess it was the 5th. It was on the morning after the election. And
mm,
they were saying that it was a dead heat. It was too close to call. And then within 24 hours, they were saying, oh, no, 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 no. Nationwide, Biden got 3 million votes more than Trump did and so forth. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with this. How could it be that on the morning of, on Wednesday morning, they were saying it was a dead heat, too close to call. But then within less than 24 hours later, they were saying, oh, well, the late returns came in and it was all in favor of Biden. And that's why he won convincingly and, if not easily and stuff.
Mm.
Again, I don't, I will not go out there and say that, the election was stolen because I don't think it was. But
No.
I do think at certain I think in certain, kind of areas and in certain ways, they were inflating totals for, one guy and kind of withholding totals for other guys because it would not have been, as I say, they say decision to, in fact, can you hang on just a second? I'll get the paper for you. I know where it is.
Sure.
I'll be
Okay.
back.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, this is the St. Louis Post-Dispatch of Wednesday, 11/4/2020, November 4th, 2020. There's the front page, and it says, decision delayed, too close to call. And it says, Trump Biden in a dead heat. U.S. Senate GOP looks to retain control. U.S. House Democrats push to expand edge. And again, this is the day after the election itself. But within 24 hours, they had changed their tune to say that, oh, no, Trump or Biden clearly won. He got, nationwide, he got 3 million more votes and all that kind of thing. Now, what with California being now, California at one time was a swing state. It's not anymore. It's solid Democratic.
Well, yeah, it was Reagan who used to be governor, didn't he? So
yeah, Reagan was governor, and then they
Yeah.
had a couple other Republicans, thereafter. But now California, I kind of say that almost every bad idea that takes hold in America starts in California.
Right.
Yeah. So that's just But the thing is, with California being one of the last states, obviously, to turn in all of their ballots because they're in the far west. Really nationwide, I understand that without California, Trump actually did get a majority of the votes in the other 49 states in 2016. It was California's 3 million, more votes for Hillary than for him that gave Hillary a plurality in the entire country. Whereas if it had been the other 49, Trump would have actually had a majority. And it was it wasn't exactly the same thing because even without California, Biden got more votes than Trump did. But though that huge majority that they're going to get out there in California will always kind of push things and always kind of inflate things. So in California, it is certainly not indicative of the reality of America any more than I would think. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same thing in England, but I would imagine that like London is not all of the UK. There's probably
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's a different country.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's you've got the London elites, centrics. You've got obviously a lot of large immigrant population in London, of course, as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it's basically I don't know if you're familiar with the M25. It's a motorway that goes all around London.
Yeah.
That's the dividing line. What's inside the M25 and outside it? Outside it is still England. It's still provincial United Kingdom. But yes, no, I mean there's vast. I'm sure there is obviously as there is in America, but there's I think on America you've got the sort of the tech giants and the elites on the coastlines, haven't you? And then in the middle you've got everybody else, and it's very similar in Britain, except you've got London and the rest of England, but also the component parts of the UK. So Wales and Scotland are much more to the left than England is.
But,
So England is sort of very conservative with a small c.
mhm.
Scotland is much more to the left, which is why when there's a conservative government in Britain, the Scottish Nationals find it much easier to whip up support against the union because they can say you've got this conservative government in London that you haven't voted for. And there's a Labour government like we have now, they tend to lose traction because they can't really claim they're not being represented. And it's, as I say, in Wales there isn't such a clamoring in Wales for independence, but they're on to the left largely because they don't they've got a lot more tax raising powers, I think, now than they used to, but by and large they're still financed and bankrolled by the UK government. So they haven't got to worry too much about funding everything. So they can be more socialist, in my view, because they're sort of looked after, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
But obviously in the States, of course, it's where you get in a lot of countries on the coast, you get more new wealth, I suppose, or changing dynamics.